Most of the feelings I had at the end of the first book that I said I would have liked to have had, maybe to give it more, this book did. Mostly. Now, this is still a very complex book, so this review is going to be my understanding of what happened and summary thoughts and feelings. I will have a small spoiler section where I try to remember all the spoilery thoughts that I had while reading and conclusions. I vlogged it though, so you can go watch my first reactions here. It was an experience. It was an experience. We went on a roller coaster with this book. We went on a roller coaster. That is, of course, book 2 in the 3 body problem. That's not the series. Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. Yes, it's just a trilogy, which started with the 3 body problem. Also, the review for that, if you haven't, you should probably check that one out first. But outside of the spoiler section, we could just talk about the story mostly. And you could theoretically start with this one, because this kind of has more stuff happen. And it tells you a bit about what happens. And I'll get into why I think that, actually, the thought that just popped into my head later, hopefully, if I don't completely forget I said this. We're doing swell for the intro, but I actually like it. I actually like our thoughts we're having, so we'll keep it. I'm trying to think of which order I want to do this, because in most of my reviews, I do tend to start with the plot or the setting as the first, and then we talk through that until we get to the characters. But for this one, also I think I moved my lights, and if I hold the book to this side, I'm going to put my face in shadow too much. Let me know if I do or not. In this one though, we are following completely different characters than the first novel. Completely. You will see Yi Wen-jae in the prologue. You see her talk to our kind of main character of this book. You see her as she is talking and kind of introducing us this way to Luoji, who, out of a multi-POV story, because this opens up to multiple people, possibly one of the most influential to the whole story. And I'm debating how much to tell you as to why. He was an astronomer and a sociology professor. He started just teaching sociology at this school there in Beijing, because he's kind of a genius, but like one of those misdirected. His thought process and the way he thinks things out and just his realization because of what his specialties were is what was so important to the whole story. So, and also I think slightly we see more from him. Maybe slightly there's more chapters from him throughout all of it. But he becomes a big part of something mostly against his will. And then he's the layabout for a lot of the book too. So it's like he's a crucial part, but also you kind of get the feeling that he's not important towards the story for a good portion. It gives that impression. I will go ahead and say that. But in the first chapter, we are actually introduced to one of the characters that is highly influential, follows throughout pretty much the entire storyline, and that is Zhang Beihai? Yes. Okay, this might, if you've read the book and you know, this might sound weird to say that he was kind of my favorite for a lot of the book. So if you know why, like, that might be weird, then yeah, don't judge me. But he is a Navy officer for the People's Army in China, right? No. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the political partiness. The Chinese Navy, he was a political commissar for the Chinese Navy because his father was a Navy commander, captain, and so it's, you know, whole family thing. So he has this whole other kind of mindset to things, and he was one of the ones that picked up on the morale aspect and the humanity aspect of having to look at this from that very early on, whereas most people were just thinking big picture, long term. He was looking at how is this affecting people, how we're not going to be able to get to the long term if everybody gives up. And I appreciated how he picked up on that and how he tried to show that to people and like see that that was a big deal, and just that he looked at humanity as a whole versus the individual for a good majority of the story. Then our other characters, part 1 of the book is called the Wall Facers. So our other main characters are all part of this Wall Facer group. There's 2 more characters that aren't actually part of the Wall Facer group, but the wall facers are an integral part in their characters we will see from. And they all have well, actually 2 of them are very similar in what their end strategies are, but always kind of going in a different approach. There was Frederick Tyler, who was the former U.S. Secretary of Defense. Didn't like him. He was just kind of a jerk. Then there was Manuel Diaz. Wait, there's another name. Manuel Ray Diaz, who was the former president of Venezuela. He liked nuclear bombs. And then there was Bill Hines, who was a neuroscientist. And it also said former president of the EU, but I don't remember that ever being mentioned. His plan and strategy was probably the most sci-fi sounding of all of it. And this book involves space planes. I mean, space elevators and spaceships in a space fleet. But I'm going to go with his is actually, his is the most sci-fi sounding of all of them. The other ones, you know, far-flung, you know, possibility sci-fi sorts of things. But his, looking at how to pronounce them, like that's going to help me. Because it won't. It won't. Dashi, though. You know, Shi Kwang, our detective and PDC security officer from the first novel. He's here in this one, and normally most of his scenes are involving Luoji and how they're dynamic working together, and they actually play off of each other really well. Throughout the whole story, though, across all of time that this story takes place, he is probably the smartest tactical person and practical person. Even though he's like, oh, I'm not that smart. I'm, not like all of you geniuses. No, dude, you have your own level, and it is awesome, and what was needed. The plot of this book, though, actually follows humanity during this crisis era when we have been contacted by the Trisolarian aliens, and we know that they're going to be here in 400 years. It's just us trying to figure out how we're going to survive. How we are not going to lose our entire planet, our entire species, especially when they have blocked us from being able to technologically advance anymore. So it is the government's having to come together. It is strategy a lot. There's strategy and politics and science. The science has gone into very well in this book and talking about different things and how we will react. So humanity wasn't the right thing to say there. How we will react, though, to the crisis situation, and it felt so real. Yes, I could see us having this issue. I could see us having this breakdown in our living conditions, in our morality, in our, not morality, but morale. That's a different word than morality, but like, the belief whether or not we can pull through this. The one thing I will say is once we do travel the 200-year time jump and how humanity was acting at that point, I did not understand. We are following, though, several characters as they are traveling through these points in times because hibernation is a thing, so they could be frozen and de-thawed when technology might have advanced a little bit, and they can help guide it in the way that, would best suit the plan. Because some of these people are integral to the plan. It's a very interesting look at this. Earlier, I also did state that I think you could actually start with this one while the first book gives context as to who the Trisolarians are, why they're coming to Earth, why we are pretty sure they're going to just annihilate us. But in the terms of the way a lot of books are written, this is a pretty complete story of where it does start. That just gives context and background. But plenty of stories start out with us at this point. They do. It's a little infuriating sometimes. But yes, you could totally start at this point if you really wanted to. Things to know going in, though, is that you will not get emotional depth into the characters. It doesn't happen. From having multiple perspectives, though, you can kind of see things because you are seeing from that character and their point of view and their thought process, which you think you would get emotional things from that, and their thought process and kind of how they're thinking about emotions. And then you see from someone else's point of view of this character and their actions, and it gives you a little bit of depth from that. I do believe it's just the way his writing style. He just does not give this to the characters It could still be the translational error, not error, but the translational difference. Okay, let's get into some spoileries though. So if you don't want to see the spoilers, you can skip forward to the final rating and final thoughts of the good and the bad of the book, in my opinion. I did have more spoilery thoughts probably at the end of the vlog, but they've all kind of fizzled. I don't know. The first one we'll start with though is after the 200-year time jump. Why was everybody in the future just so happy and so, oh yes, of course we will have victory over these people? Dude, the Sophons are still there. They're still blocking technology. Sure, we've advanced to this point. They were able to make and send these tiny little quantum things that completely destroy our sense of technology and science. Why are you people so happy? Or so confident? Yeah, I really thought had to do with Heinz's mind, what was it called again? Mental shield. That. I thought that had gone rampant and somehow in the population, and it's just brainwashy thing. And the Great Ravine, I get it. People, were so sad. It was so bad and everything. And like, of course, we had this renaissance and now humanity is better again. And we just, nope, that still does not exactly explain how we got to that dumb mentality. Also, the fact that it took 70 pages for them to tell us what the Great Ravine was. And I was expecting this big cataclysmic thing. Which sure, losing 3 to 5 billion people. I sound like a horrible person for saying that. I still was expecting something, I don't know, more earth-breaking. I mean, it says ravine. Okay, depression into ravine, sure, whatever, similar words. Then the epilogue, the 5-year time skip there, I didn't love it because I have general questions, like how this exactly came to be. There's a few things there that I don't quite understand how those, especially because he said like he wasn't going to be involved anymore. So why? I don't understand. Was it completely necessary to tell us? No. Just personally, I didn't care for that. I would like to know these answers. That's enough of the spoiler rambly thoughts. So let's move on to the final rambly thoughts of the book for everybody. First off was, I really, really enjoyed this book. So my good thoughts are, why am I looking at my notes to tell you my good thoughts? Because everything is not a good answer. Because it wasn't everything. It wasn't. This was a 4.5 star read though. Like I knew I liked it more than the first book. But I think that is a universal opinion pretty much. The fact that we got multiple perspectives, they were different and they approached things different and they were deep. This looked at humanity's dark parts and what would happen, and that's a weird way to say it. I don't know. I like the strategies too of how there could be different approaches to saving the world and people, not even the world, but people, and how all of it played out and the different pieces moving into place to get to these things. The wall facers and the wall breakers. Oh my goodness, even as some of the characters. Yeah. So the realistic reactions though of everybody and how humanity reacted to things. Yes, I feel that this is quite an accurate representation of things. The detailing of the timeline too, like how much we spent at these particular points in time to get to this and how they had to wait certain amount of times for technology to advance and to be able to pull this off, and just the far looking of, well, I think we can get to this, or this is how this needs to go, and just the detailing. And there was some perspectives that I didn't really talk about in the characters, which were like more your average everyday citizen. The things that, still didn't like as much is that we didn't get the emotional depthness to the characters. Not a huge, reader of that anyway, so I don't care. But, for some of them, maybe. Especially because it would have made this one character and his actions and the way that it went about, I think it would have shown just a stark contrast more. Because if you got the emotions of everybody and seeing through his eyes and seeing his actions, it would have stood out more. Overall though, I am greatly enjoying this series. This is, yes, so glad I picked this up. It does look into the hard science and real science things, not just, like last book was mostly physics. This one we go into astronomy and a little bit of physics, technology stuffs, neuroscience, brain chemical things, tactics, yes, and politics, and humanity, the study of humanity. Okay, yes. Really would recommend this one. It's going very good, and it looks at, I think, a very realistic approach of what we would have to face and encounter in this sort of situation. I think it's a very realistic look at how humanity would handle it. If you read the book, I'd like to know what your thoughts on it were. Hopefully I touched on everything okay without going into too spoilers. Don't think it, we were not brief in this review, unfortunately, and I might have been a bit all over the place. So sorry for the scatterbrainedness, and but I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't read the book but would like to comment just to support the channel, you can give me a rocket ship emoji or spaceship, because I think those are two separate ones. And just check out some of my other videos if you like this one, so that you'll know if you want to subscribe to the channel to stick around and talk about more books with us. And if you haven't finished the series yet, I'll be reading Death's End next month, and you can join me along for that one. I hope you're finding something great to read today though, and I will see you in the next one.